Hello and welcome to the Pump It Up podcast. This is your host, FabSab, and today I am joined by
Bryan.
This episode is episode 2, Getting Started, which is part 2 of the Getting Started. So if you didn't listen to episode 1, I would recommend listening to that first and then coming to this one, because in this one we're going to talk about some technical terms. So if you don't need the basics, you can skip it. But we'll be going through some words you might hear people saying and what they mean, so you feel like you know what people are talking about. Because there's a lot of words that people use that are kind of hard to find the definitions for, or maybe people don't want to ask, or whatever. Anyways, we're going to be talking about technical terms. We're also going to go over some footwork related terms, but not really too much in depth, more of the meaning and kind of what they look like. So if you want to learn, of course they do, why are they listening? So let's get started. First, we are going to go over some terms related to scoring that you may have heard. The first one we actually briefly mentioned in episode 1, which is stage pass. And a stage pass is when the life bar, which is the bar at the top, stayed above 0 throughout the entire song. When you look at the score at the end, you'll notice a little star above your score, which means that you stage passed a song. You can still technically pass a song if you get an A on it, although stage pass just means that your life bar didn't fall, so it's slightly more impressive than just Aing a song. The next thing is a blue S, which means that your judgments, which are the perfect, great, good, bad, miss, were only perfect, great, good, bad, so you got 0 misses throughout the song. There's something also that people call more of a dirty blue S, which is if somebody got a lot of bads and goods, but they still got a blue S. It's kind of just a casual term because it feels, a blue S is kind of more of a significant looking thing, and it feels kind of like cheap when you get a blue S still, even though you got a bunch of bads and goods in the song, but is still technically a blue S. A gold S is kind of the upscale version of a blue S. So a gold S means that someone got only perfect and great judgments throughout the entire song. And then the highest judgment, or the highest scoring, is a double S, double gold S, I guess. And that means that they got all perfects throughout the entire song. It's also called a PFC, which stands for Perfect Full Combo. There's Full Combo, FC, and GFC, which people don't really use as much, but just means basically gold S. And then also with related to scoring, the scoring in Pump is a combo multiplier, which means that you get extra bonus points awarded to you based on your highest combo throughout the game. So if somebody got a larger combo than someone else, but the same amount of perfects and greats, the person with the larger combo would have a higher score. So next, Bryan will go over some terms related to footwork.
Okay, so the first thing you'll come across, and what's most common, they are holds. And what holds are, you basically just keep your foot on the note until the hold is finished. Secondly, you'll come over.
Also
Hello.
Holds, sorry to add in, I didn't find this out until a while later, but you actually can have your foot on the thing before the hold starts and you'll still get it.
Crossovers. Crossovers are what would happen when you cross one foot over to the other. So let's say your right foot is on the bottom right, and then the next note would be top right. You would have to use your left foot and cross over your feet to hit both notes. Drills. Drills are just the same note repeated over and over. So for example, top left and the yellow middle, just repeated over and over. Now streams are a little bit more tricky. They are like drills, but they have a mix-up of different notes. So it can range from just drills into just a bunch of random chaotic notes. For example, in charts like Super Fantasy S7. That's where you'll come across your first stream. And finally, brackets. They are a little bit more advanced.
Okay, so I'm going to explain brackets because it's kind of tricky to explain. Okay, so basically what brackets are is when you use one foot to hit two arrows, which is why in episode 1 I mentioned a lot of people like to wear really thin arched shoes. If you look at the pad, you may notice the yellow arrow and the arrows around it. If you look at the corner, they kind of overlap a bit. And so you can put your foot over the overlapping part and you can hit two arrows at once. You usually would want to bracket if you see a chart which has 3 arrows at once because you have 2 feet. So technically one of those feet would have to cover 2 arrows. However, if you see a jump, let's say a yellow-red jump, you can just hit that with 1 foot. It's a bit more technical to do that, and so most songs won't have that at a lower difficulty. Although it's kind of fun to practice if you see a jump, you can try hitting it with 1 foot. And then another thing is ghost stepping, which basically means stepping when arrows aren't there. It may sound kind of weird, like why would you want to ghost step? It's more for timing thing. So like if there's a song with a really big gap of no arrows and then there's an arrow all of a sudden, instead of just randomly stopping, stepping, and then starting again, you might want to keep a metronome. So some people will, if you see players just stomping when there's no arrow, it's them just keeping timing in their head. I think that's about it. I feel like there's something I missed. There's shadow playing. No one likes shadow playing, so I don't think I should explain that to them. Next, we're going to be talking about the different modes of playing. There's full mode, which is just the standard playing that we talked about in episode 1. And then we briefly talked about ranked mode. Ranked mode is more advanced because you have to play at least S or D 13s and you have to stage pass them. On top of that, the timing judgment is a lot harder, and so that means that the window for hitting a perfect is a lot more stricter. So maybe you got a great, but it would have been a perfect in full mode. If you want to practice timing, I would actually recommend going into the options window, which I explained how to get to in part 1, and then go to judgment, and there is HJ, which stands for hard judge. In ranked, it's VJ, which is like very hard. Is it very hard judge?
Yes, very hard judgment.
Yeah, very hard judgment, which is like the hardest judgment, but HJ is still harder than full mode, but it's not super hard. So if you want to practice timing, I'd recommend that. Although for those who think that you would like to try rank mode, the main difference is 1, the timing, and 2, BGA dark cannot be enabled, so the backgrounds are a bit flashy. But if there's an S or D 13 or higher that you're comfortable with, I would recommend trying it on ranked, or at least trying it for your last song, because if you fail, it's fine. And then the modes of play are singles and doubles, which can also be like in ranked or not ranked. Singles is just the standard 1 person on 5 arrows, and then there's also doubles, which if you notice on the difficulty, the doubles charts are green, the singles charts are yellow. Yep. And so doubles is 1 person on all 10 arrows. There is also co-op mode, which is 2 or more people on all 10 arrows, which is a little bit more complicated, but quite fun. You can find it under the extra zone when you're looking through the selection. When you go back out of the menu in full mode, you probably would want to ask someone. It's kind of hard to explain. And then there's also quest mode, which is also kind of tricky, and I wouldn't recommend starting with, but if you are more advanced, then it's really fun. Actually, you kind of have weird objectives to do, or sometimes the charts will be a bit weird or whatever, and it's just like for fun. You go through them and you try to do these certain objectives. So I think that's about it. Have anything else?
No, that's about it. We covered all the basic topics.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening and have a nice day.
Later.